means to us in many ways. First of all, it's a very, very noble situation. I think most of
Yeah.
us never actually experienced anything like that before.
Yeah.
It is not just a global crisis, but it's a crisis that affects every other aspect. Because usually, when you have a crisis, it's either like a financial crisis, or you have a disaster, natural disaster, or political crisis. But this one seems to affect almost every aspect of our life. Livelihoods are affected, those health, finance, economics are hence affected as well. And I think this crisis also is a very unique one because as human beings, we are actually social animals.
Yeah.
And this crisis, this pandemic, just works in a very counterintuitive way for us because it makes us isolate ourselves from each other.
Yeah.
Not only that, the crisis is really making us very anxious, and we also could not get together and provide some comfort to each other as well. And the other nature of this crisis is that this pandemic is also so much evasive and so much of uncertainties in it as well.
Yeah.
Um, we have been into this is fifth month probably studying this virus, and still on a weekly basis you hear new things about this virus and new findings and all these things.
Yeah.
And the prospect of a vaccine is still so far ahead. And human beings, when we want to try and assess certain risk about future, we need information.
Yeah.
The other information so we can assess risk, we know what to do in the future. But right now, this information is just doesn't seem to be available. Or whatever information that we get, we don't feel that this is something that we can trust. Maybe something else might come up. So I think that's why, with all these uncertainties, this novel experience, this isolation, it's a really like a whole pot of ingredients for anxieties. It's very normal, in fact, I think, to feel very confused, anxious, worried in this time. I think on a personal level, some people might start, especially the first few weeks, that's what I observed and I heard from some clients and students and friends as well, that they started to just feel like this very uncanny feeling like, is this like a apocalypse coming, or it's a lot of questions that arise like, is this going to be like this forever? Why is this happening? A lot of disbelief. A lot of questions that we call quite like existential coming up, like why is it happening to us? Are we being punished for something, or just questioning what's the meaning? Why did this even happen? And I think some other individual experiences like increasing of anxieties, or some people might feel a bit more depressed because anxious, especially looking at people around that maybe you have the parents who are older, you have friends or families who are frontliners. So being anxious that these people might actually get affected as well, being very worried about health, financial situations. So I think the first few weeks is just a lot of this surge of emotions that just keep coming. From what I see, that this last 1 or 2 weeks, some people are starting to see that, okay, things are sinking in right now. This is really happening. How can I adjust? How can I manage my emotions? It's less overwhelming, but there's also this chronic thing of, oh my God, when is this ending? It's 2 weeks and then 2 weeks and then 2 weeks. So to have this very dreadful feeling. Continue to do that as well. Increase sometimes friction with family members. Heard about this from friends and clients about how being under the same roof with a spouse or with a family members. Before this, you didn't need to see them 24/7, or even your kids, right? You send them to the kindergarten and you come back, you pick them up, you spend a few hours with them. It's all fun, but now it's a bit different. You spend 24 hours So in this time, actually, a lot of relationship friction might happen because you are already under stress. So a lot of things, especially the negative aspects of it, could get amplified as well.
Yeah.
So that add on to the stress that the individual might feel. On a more organizational basis as well, how do I get used to my new work norm right now? You and I, we are all working from home right now.
Yeah.
Some people might find it a bit difficult to adjust to the employer's expectations, working from home, uncertainties at work. Maybe some employers have not communicated clear enough to the employees what is the direction right now, how we're going to handle these situations. So employees feel a bit anxious, like what's really going to happen? Are we going to get laid off? Are we going to get payment cut? From the employer's perspective, especially from business owner's perspective, is even very anxiety provoking. Is my business going to continue? I know I have to take care of staff welfare, but at the same time, my own business is not doing well as well. So these are all the common experiences that I think people are going through in this period of time from all different levels. Yeah, this is a very difficult thing to manage because when you say mental health issues, of course, it also depends on what kind of mental health issues as well.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different, from anxiety, depression to schizophrenia, personality, if you want to go on mental disorders. So definitely this pandemic posed a very different kind of challenge to people with mental disorders. Because the first thing is that access to mental health services is limited right now because of the PCO. A lot of people who might need medication, they might need to maybe just get medication, more medication at one go, or can't get even sometimes because they can't go out. I know of people who actually want to see a psychiatrist and they couldn't do that because the psychiatrists, some of them, they're not seeing new clients. So services are really limited right now. So these are some of the challenges that they are facing. And of course, depending on what kind of mental health issues that you have, whichever it is, I think the pandemic also posed it's just add on to the anxiety that I might have. Right? I can't go out to get my medication. I can't access to my mental health professionals. And let's say if before this they have a certain support group, they might not be able to go as well.
Yeah.
So for these people, maybe one of the things that they could do is, if they know that medication is something that would help them, just at least for this period of time, maybe try to see psychiatrists to get some medication support. I know that it is possible, for example, there are some services that can deliver medication even from pharmacy prescription.
Yes.
That's possible. You can arrange that, right? If you don't have access to your therapist physically right now, there are actually hotlines, free hotlines you can call. You can also arrange your therapist to do like online sessions.
Yeah, yes.
Ask your therapist whether that's possible, because I know that not all therapists are comfortable doing that, but it is a possible arrangement. And I also know that there are some groups of people, they might go on to some online social support group. Like if let's say you have generalized anxiety disorder, the support group that's moderated or facilitated by a therapist, so that you can get some sort of support from there. But also I think how people might be able to limit their reception of news as well, because we are surrounded by COVID-19 news.
Yeah.
Basically it's almost like nothing else is on television news besides COVID-19.
Yeah, exactly.
And it really makes us anxious, even for us, right? So I think if let's say you know that you have some mental health concerns already, maybe just limit some of this exposure to too much exposure to the COVID-19 news. Not to say we totally ignore it, but just don't read too much into it. Every second refreshing your news to see what's going on, that's a bit too much.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, right? Because we know that these frontliners, they're doing their best to support
Yeah.
our lives right now, and also they also have their own livelihood to support as well. It's important that they continue to have their livelihood, and when they go home, I know that it's just for example, I read on the news sometimes in overseas, some of these frontliners, let's say the hospital workers, they even stay outside so that they isolate themselves from their own family members. But that's because they're just exposed to the patients on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
So to say, the other sides of it, that maybe groceries, delivery people, people who work at the grocers. I think having some sort of understanding that if I were to distance myself from you, what does that mean? Because sometimes, even though cognitively we know that when we physically distance ourselves from each other, that's for each other's safety, still sometimes it is this feeling that why are you distancing yourself from me? Why do
Yeah.
you, try to be so, I don't know, so distant, and people might just feel a bit it can actually put a strain on the relationship because you can't
Yes.
actually close the person that you used to. And sometimes family members might not even understand, like, why do you still need to go and work? Why do you still
Yeah.
need to go and do these things? Is money more important right now? So
Mhm.
kind of things might actually arise because of the just generally feeling that the intimacy is not there because you need to isolate yourself from one another. So from the family's perspective, maybe just having a sit down to understand from your family members who are frontliners what are the reasons maybe that they want to do this, they are doing this, and what are the concerns of these frontliners. Knowing that not only that we are worried, the people who are the frontliners are actually the ones who are really worried about their own health as well. So
Definitely.
empathetic about that we're in this together, we are all worried about this together,
Yeah.
so share the burden with each other and then have some kind of more like clearer rules and guidelines for each other to boundaries, I would say boundaries for each other to follow, so that we feel a bit more certain in this time. Because when there's no clear boundary right now and we just interpret the other person's physical distancing or whatsoever the way that it is, sometimes we might misinterpret, like, oh, why suddenly today you don't want to come to the room, or why suddenly today you are so distant.
Yeah.
In these stressful times, sometimes we just interpret things in a negative way. So maybe having some clearer agreement, like, okay, you are working outside right now, so once you come back, you need to shower first before you could go this and that, or maybe we need to separate our food right now, we need to do this, and this is for both our benefits, or even maybe we don't see each other face to face anymore. So having this kind of agreement makes things a little more maybe certain in
Yeah.
times of uncertainty. I think one of the things that I always believe is just firstly um, acknowledge the emotions that we are going through at the
Mhm.
moment. That if right now you are feeling anxious about things, you're feeling very depressed about things, you feel very confused, just just don't know what you're feeling, all of these are actually okay,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with feeling anxious. In fact, a lot of times I think our anxiety tells us really what matters to us. You usually won't get anxious about things that are unrelated to you, that you don't care about at all. And things usually make you anxious because they matter to you.
Yeah.
And they make you sad because these things are precious to you. So I think for me, firstly, just listening to the message of the anxiety. For example, if let's say you know that your parent is very anxious about some things, and she just kind of going around panic buying right now, just hoarding a lot of things because she's anxious. Maybe just sitting down and asking, like, what is it that's on your mind? Like, what are you anxious about? And then you realize that, oh, maybe she's actually anxious about your grandparents.
Yeah.
You actually go to kind of looking into managing that source of anxiety. So why don't we just call grandparents, grandma, grandpa more frequently? Instead of trying to push away the anxiety, and we try to distract ourselves using other things like just always panic buying or hoarding. And that leads to a second point, which is that maybe sometimes we do need some distractions, So a lot of people do engage in new hobbies nowadays, whether or not it's the more trendy thing, which is starting a sourdough starter or starting to learn a new language or whatever it is. I think these are good things to just kind of keep you grounded on the daily things. So if you have some interests that you want to develop, I think this is the time to do it. The other thing is, following that, maybe maintaining some daily routine would be good. Just because you're at home every day doesn't mean that you don't differentiate day and night. Especially for people who are working, having some sort of routine, just wake up still at the same time and sit in front of the laptop and work. I think that would actually help to have a sense of familiarity and certainty in the times of uncertainty. That also maybe, let's say if you have living in a living condition, family members who are living with you, having some agreement, again, like what we mentioned before, we are family members, maybe we need some personal space as well, right? Because each other's nerve too much, this makes the situation a bit difficult to deal with. So sometimes it's okay, let's say if you tell your family members, I kind of need to have some space for myself in a room. I'll meet you during dinner, but right now I just need some space. And from the other hand, also understand if, let's say, the people that you live with need their own personal space as well. I think we sometimes take things very personally, especially these times in space sensitive, because we're already under so much distress. And similar kind of advice to the ones who are already having mental distress. I think limiting our exposure to social media as well, because sometimes it's just too many news, and a lot of news could be depressing. But that also leads me to my final point as well, that when we look at news, I remember one of my friends who's a psychologist in the States, he did a talk called The Pandemic Hope in Pandemic Times, and he said that when we look at people who are suffering, who are in pain, who are grieving, who have lost, and we look at people who are maybe ignorant or doesn't make sense to us, we know that these people exist.
Yeah.
We feel angry and disappointed. Don't forget to also look at the other side. Look at the people who help, people who care, who nurture, who protect. And so you want to look at both sides and not just looking at the most dire situations. I think that might give us a more balanced view about what's really happening. This pandemic has shown us sides of human beings that probably we were just not paying much attention to before this.
Yeah.
You see people who are ignorant, arrogant, and but you also see people who really come out and care for each other. And I think how this will change after we come out from this actually really depends on us right now. In one of the interviews, I told people that even though the pandemic and the virus kill us and takes lives from us, it doesn't have to take away humanities. And I think that's something that probably we can decide for ourselves what we want to do right now. And that will have an effect on how things will be after the MCO. Will we come closer together? Maybe we will have a different understanding about what we really want in our lives. Maybe we might see nature and life in a very different way, knowing that things could be so uncertain, but there are certain things that we really hold dearly onto. Uh, so on a more personal level, I think these are the things that we can all reflect on. And I think one thing is that I always believe in a human spirits and the resilience of human spirits as well. And that's something that throughout my years of practice as a clinical psychologist that has never failed to amaze me still to see the resilience of the human spirit, that in the toughest time, usually it's where we see how much we could actually do and bounce back from the very little things. Like I never knew that you could give me a box of random vegetables and I could create a edible dish. I always thought that I need to just stick to the few dishes. Out of those constraints, out of the restraint that you have right now, maybe it's the time that you could learn how to go beyond that constraint and just be creative. So businesses or even your people who are doing schoolwork, I think in this time, sometimes maybe it's a good time to think, hey, how else can I be creative and, adapt to the moment right now? So let me just start off with what actually when you say mental disorders, what it really is that for us, when we assess the mental disorders, it's really looking at the number of symptoms that you have and look at the severity of the symptoms, look at the frequency of the symptoms, how long the symptoms have been. And then we say, okay, based on the exhibition of these symptoms with this duration, with this intensity, then maybe you have such and such mental disorder. So, which means that it is not that you could only go to see a mental health practitioner if you have a mental disorder, because any one of us could actually feel so stressed out and so burnt out, so upset, so distressed, so anxious. We just really need to talk to a professional who could help us to maybe talk about things. So you don't have to wait. Actually, the first thing is you don't have to wait until you are diagnosed with a mental disorder to talk to a professional, right?
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people are wondering, like, when do I know that maybe I might be having mental disorders? So if you behaviorally, if you look at the person or you look at yourself, if you find that you are having a lot of symptoms like really difficult to sleep, or you lose interest in daily things, you feel always very restless, agitated, you find a change in the way that you relate to other people, maybe because you just lose your patience very easily, or things like you find that you have a lot of physical symptoms like shortness of breath, you couldn't breathe sometimes, cold sweat. These are some of the behavioral things that you can observe that maybe give an indication that, hey, I'm not feeling very well right now mentally, psychologically. Emotionally and in terms of your thoughts, if you find yourself always thinking about, oh my God, what is this going to happen? What is that's going to happen? You're just so preoccupied with everyday worries. Emotionally, if you find yourself feeling always very, very low mood or very anxious, feeling like hopeless even, maybe these are some of the indication as well that maybe it's good to talk to someone. I would not advise kind of self-diagnosis. If you see these things happening, or just a general sense, you just feel like, I cannot do with this anymore. I really feel like I'm gonna have like a breakdown soon. I really feel I need to talk to someone. I feel really stuck. I think that's a good indication that maybe talking to someone would be a good idea.